Hello, my name is Patrick Huang. I'm here to present a paper entitled Boullee's Drawing Praxis and the Contemporary Speculative Practice, co-authored by Suki Hui and myself. Architecture drawing is a means to an end, but to what end does it arrive at? Is it a spatial hypothesis that ends with the building as referred to by Kahn? And I quote, "The painter sketches to paint, the sculptor draws to carve, and the architect draws to build." End quote. Or could the drawing be an autonomous artifact that exists for its own sake, as in Libeskin's chamber works, suggested by Robin Evans, where the architecture drawing is acting synonymously as architecture? Through the lens of the speculative, this paper seeks to address the arc of the relationship between the praxis of Boullee and the contemporary drawing practice. In Boullee, the drawing is used to imagine, anticipate, and affirm his proclamations as written in ESI Salart, where the thing of drawing and the message behind it forms the vehicle to an optimistic future. The Enlightenment thoughts of reason and order are expressed through his drawings. What about an end that aims to speculate and even embellish the development and monetary potentials of land acquisitions? A tendency represented by and relied upon speedy image making and disseminated through social media for mass consumption. Boullee's speculative drawing praxis comes with an agency, particularly the Cenotaph series from 1782 to 1789, which was deployed to advance a critical narrative for an ideal vision on nature and architecture. In the Temple of Nature, Boullee commemorates the progress of the Enlightenment through a monument of grandeur, carving into earth as if it is an archaeological process of discovery. It is among a series of cenotaph designs that articulates Boullee's philosophical ideas on nature, beauty, and architecture. The idea is premised upon embracing nature as the source of order. It is to bring a direct connection between nature and architecture without mimicking through the figurative decoration, which prior to the 18th century, the reference to nature is typically understood to be an amalgam in which imitation of nature, proportion, beauty, and orders were all blended. When articulating how nature would govern architectural principles, Boullee describes the use of symmetry as a mean to generate the image of order and rationality that conveys a sense of beauty and perfection. It allows the mind to comprehend its form. The simple, symmetrical, and rational form for Boullee is the best iconographic representation of this understanding. It is clear that Boullee acts upon the hypothesis that there is a rational correlation between simple geometry and the human's perception. For Boullee, the drawing is a critical and creative domain. It is a simultaneous critique of the present, as well as speculation on the appearance of tomorrow. Although drawing as a speculative praxis was not widely accepted in the mainstream, and may even have been objected upon, its lineage from Boullee to the present is evident through the works of modern avant-gardes in the likes of Hans Posik, Bruno Taut, Otto Bartning, and the color experiments of Theo van Doesburg. These faithfuls persisted in using drawing as a means to experiment and to develop new ways of thinking, understanding, and designing with drawing. It subsequently paved the way for many generations to come. The acceptance of drawing as architecture would continue to proliferate in the late 60s and continued into the 70s during a turbulent climate of political and social transformations. When building opportunities declined in the US and Europe during that period, architects turned to drawings. Coinciding with the flattening of economic activities in the stock market, the drawing provided a fertile ground for the experimental architecture. The prolonged economic recession created the opportunity of acceptance for drawing as synonymous to architecture. The drawing became a platform for presenting a vision to probe, imagine, and speculate the unfamiliar. It has been rediscovered and became more than just a footnote to architecture. It has come back richer, stronger, and more provocative, which affects many postmodern architects to embark their architectural aspirations in reality. Protagonists such as Super Studio, Archigram, Bernard Schumi, Paolo Soleri, Lebbeus Woods not only drew, but theorized their work. Evidence of Boullee's thinking and ways of using drawing with agency can be found during this period, including Lebbeus Woods' Tomb of Einstein, echoing Boullee's famous cenotaph for Newton. While Soleri envisioned Arcosanti, a desert utopia with young disciples living and working together in a vast spatial vessel recalling the temple of nature once proposed by Boullee. A new form of speculative drawing emerged after the successful completion of Frank Gehry's magnum opus in 1997, which can be described as the age of post-Bilbao exuberance. The absent-minded practitioner in this case tend to project their architectural designs through photorealistic ray trace renderings with intense Photoshop post-processing. The pictorial images almost always result in shiny and glowy perspectives. To describe this production by the noun or verb of drawing would be imprecise and would not give drawing the justice it deserves. Instead, much of this work resembles the hybridization between the photograph and the image. In architecture enters the age of post-digital drawing. Saint Jacob argues that the culture of digital rendering has almost killed a critical architectural act, which is the facilities to speculate through drawing. He asserted that the high-fidelity rendering packages have transformed the architecture drawings as the body double of photography, presenting the audience with a realistic image of the building to be. Similarly, Alberto Perez Gomez questioned the role of computer graphics as merely a tool of systematic representation, degenerating it into a banal mannerism in a sea of homogeneity. The demand for architecture as images stems from two pretexts. First, the explosion of emerging markets and its demand for building consumption. Second, the widespread and ease of use in computational tools in architecture that simplifies the picture-making process. This practice is often associated with transnational architectural practices that are deeply conjoined and enslaved to the capitalistic preconditions. Whether it is land speculation or acquisition, the objective is not to advance a visionary agenda in the avant-garde sense of the tradition, but rather to visualize the monetary return of an investment. The broad use of digital rendering in architectural practices can be contributed or attributed to the extreme opulence of capitalism, saturated after the fall of the Berlin Wall. The economic activities as reflected in the Dow Jones Index indicated that drastic change between 1990s and 2008, where there was 300 times growth from around 5,000 points to 13,000 points. Conclusion. Contrary to Boullee's visionary doctrine on nature, the contemporary speculative practices of the post-Bilbao exuberance is not about attempting to reveal the avant-garde vision. Instead, it is premised upon realizing the now, the immediate, and the familiar through the fast turnout, hyper-realistic, and slippery slick computer renderings. As digital renderings increase exponentially in precision, the scope of drawing has been narrowed and subsumed by sophisticated yet limiting rendering software. Rather than serving as an instrument of thought to explore and inquire, the drawing has become one of the steps along a pipeline of representational tools to convince business decision makers. Viewers are positioned with a deep fake representation of space rather than an ambiguous state of becoming, where the future is incrementally realized. Thank you very much.